Hi, welcome to the workshop at night time. I've had an email today from Eamon from Ireland who's interested in hearing what brand tools I use. He's starting out in woodworking, he's got a few tools but he wants to upgrade and he's wondering what it is I use. Not necessarily what I use is going to be best. I've acquired my tools over a long time. Some I deal with the problems they've got and I've got over that. Other ones, yeah, they were great when I bought them, but perhaps 10-15 years later maybe that company aren't making them anymore, or perhaps the quality's gone down. So I can tell you what brands I use, show you some of them, but I can't necessarily guarantee that they'll be any good to you now. So let's have a quick look through the tool cabinet and a few things I've picked out on the bench. So let's have a little look at some saws. I've got my Japanese saws in the tool cabinet here. I couldn't really tell you what the brands were. This one's got Magma fine woodworking on it. My replacement for that, which I have up the top of the cabinet here, is this one here. So that gives you one idea. Couple more Japanese saws here. My jeweler's saw is an Eclipse. That's an old one, so you probably still can't get those. My coping saw, again, that's an old one. That's got the name Avon on it. I've had that since I was a kid, so I'm not likely to find that around anymore. Dovetailing saw here is by Adria in Canada. I do like that a lot, so I can certainly recommend that, although it was expensive, I seem to remember. Looking at the middle of the cabinet, this is something I wouldn't recommend, the Veritas burnisher. I find burnishing so much easier just with an ordinary burnisher rather than with this little setup. So what it actually does here for me in my cabinet is it holds my cards and stops them falling over. And talking about the card scrapers, I've got some from Lie-Nielsen, from Veritas and from Footprint Tools. They are all pretty much the same, I'd say, quality wise, all very good. I've also got some here that I've cut myself, and the advantage of that is you can cut different sizes to suit different jobs. Some convex and concave card scrapers from Garlic Saw Company. My cabinet scraper is a Stanley, and that is a modern one, number 80. My router plane's missing. That's an old Stanley router plane. I've got a lovely curved blade Clifton Spokeshave up here. Very good British company, excellent Spokeshave. What I've also got at the back there in the blue is a Silverline, probably the cheapest Spokeshaves you'll find. With a bit of work they do perfectly well, and I've got videos online that will show you how to tune those up. This Spokeshave, flat sole, straight blade, made by Quang. Planes, got a record 60.5. That's quite a modern plane, probably about 10 years old. An old number 4 by Stanley, number 5 by Stanley, another old one. Let me think, was this a 220? Yeah, 220 Stanley, an old one. An old record 4.5. That's an old Stanley, oh gosh, what was that one? 102. Some Lie-Nielsen, which were probably the only ones that were being rated at the time. I've got a 60.5 block plane. That's a 5.5. And I also bought the number 8 jointer. And I've got a large Lie-Nielsen shoulder plane, Stanley Sweetheart, number 93, which is an excellent little shoulder plane. a shoulder plane I made myself there, just buying a blade for it. I've got a Stanley rebate plane. Oh gosh, I should remember the number for this, but I can't. That's it, 78. Right, you do things, start filming and your memory disappears. Oh, talking about other things, rules. I've got a Japanese rule here. This brand I like, I can't remember what the name is, but it's got a little penguin on it. Very good. Lovely rules they do, and other marking out bits and bobs. Got some dovetail markers here. I've got some from Veritas and Lee Nielsen, but to be honest I don't use those anymore. I use my own ones, my limited edition. Give it a quick plug. Dovetail marking gauge and the copper dovetail marking gauge. There's a video on making that, very useful when doing a secret mitre dovetail. Marking knives are Japanese, they came from Axminster Tools, sorry. Again, no brand name on it, but if you can read the Japanese on there, good luck to you. I've got some spare blades underneath those as well. And that's a good point. If you buy an old plane or you buy a new one and you want to upgrade a little bit, you can go for a different blade. And you'll see in some of these, this 4.5, I've got a hot blade in there. Where I've upgraded, I've gone for Hock, and it's served me very well. I think they're excellent. But there are some alternatives around. Axminster bought out a Rider series of bench planes. They asked me to review one, and I took a number 4 to review. I was very impressed with that actually. For the money, excellent, much better than the Stanleys that were around. I think this was a year or 2 years ago. Same price as a Stanley, but this was a much better plane, and you also got an extra iron free with it, so can't say fairer than that. I really rate these irons. They take an excellent edge, and yep. If you're on a budget or medium budget, I think they make an excellent choice. To show you my stone here, I used that earlier. First time I've used this new superfine water stone, Japanese water stone. That's by Ice Bear. That matches many of the other water stones that I've got. I've always found Ice Bear to be a good brand. Marking out, we've got yet again the little penguin, Japanese mitre square here. Excellent, that came from Axminster Tools, I'm pretty certain. I can't remember where I bought this Groz Engineers Tri-Square. That's a nice accurate one, and it's always handy to have a small, I think it's a 3-inch one for the sort of work I do. The larger ones I tend to buy cheap. This is a Silverline one, which in the UK you can buy from Toolstation. They're really good price. I've found them to be pretty accurate as well. They're very easy also to adjust them if necessary. When they're not out very far, it's quite easy to sand the edges down and get them perfect. You'll find videos on that back in my history somewhere if you need to. Also find very useful are dial calipers, and these ones are by Axminster Tools again. Chisels, I've recently been asked to do a group review for these file chisels. Not sure whether is that how you pronounce it? File, made in Switzerland. Very impressed with these. These were called carpenter's chisels. They've got elm handles on them. Apparently you can use a mallet with them. I'd rather use them just for pairing, but I did find them to be very good. I was very impressed with those. So if you're starting out new, or if I was starting out new, I may very well have gone with these, as opposed to what I did go with, which again was the Lee Nielsen. I bought a set of Lee Nielsen bevel edge and mortise chisels. Again, at the time I started, they were really the only brand that was being quoted as being good, so I was able to go with them. I was lucky enough to be able to go with them at the time, and they served me quite well. I don't find they take the greatest of edge, but they do hold an edge, so it's not constant resharpening. Western saws, I've got a couple of old Distons that I picked up, cleaned up and sharpened. Very pleased with those. The rest of my hand saws, old hand saws, are either unbranded or brands like Spear and Jackson, and the ones that would have been considered sort of fairly moderate brands back in the day. But sharpened up, they work quite well. A lot of my sharpening these days I do with diamond stones. I've got some diamond stones by Axminster and some diamond stones by Trend. Both very good. I use the Trend lapping fluid, which I find excellent, much better than using water or anything else. Alternatives in hand planes would be the low angle planes. This is by Quang Sheng, number 62. I think this is actually very good value for money compared with the likes of Veritas and Lee Nielsen. You can find a video review on it somewhere back in my history. Well, that gives you an idea of some of my tools and where I've got them from. I must say that probably most of my tools are picked up second hand, braces, etc. And a lot of my planes are second hand. Also, actually, quite a lot of my chisels are second hand. Something else I get asked about is brand names and tools. Should you go for the top brand names like your Lee Nielsen or your Veritas? And well, this is a difficult one really, because if you go moderate quality, say your Quang Sheng, perhaps slightly less than that would be the Axminster Rider. You're paying so much less money for it, but the difference in performance is not that great. And you can actually improve the performance of a moderate or slightly less than moderate plane. With a bit of work in your own workshop, you can make them work just as well as one of the top quality ones. Obviously I've done plenty of videos on that, and you can look back in the history and find out how I do that and how much sort of effort is required. And so then it really becomes a question of do you want to save money but put a bit more manual work into getting your tools to work better, or do you want to pay that premium price for a brand and have a tool which is a little bit further along the route to perfection? It's a tough one. I don't know what's best for you out there. For me, if I was starting again with my experience, I think I'd go down the medium route, save an awful lot of money, and just do a little bit of work on each of the tools just to improve their performance as and when I had time to do so. I mean, to be honest, a moderate tool like a Quang Sheng or something like an Axminster Rider plane, pretty much out the box, quick hone of the blade, and you can do some really good work with it. Yes, you can spend another perhaps hour or so just tightening up on the machine tolerances, and you can be as good as a Lee Nielsen or a Veritas. You know, the choice is yours. Similar question is raised when you think about, should you buy a new tool or should you buy used tools? If you're buying used, you've got a chance that it was previously owned by someone who really took care of it and actually tuned it up and made it work perfectly. If you buy one of those, you've done really well. Could equally buy a used tool which was never manufactured very well, and from the day it was bought was neglected or abused by its user, and you end up with something which it really is a pile of junk. And although you didn't pay much money for it, that money's been wasted, and you've got to put an awful lot of effort in to get it to work nicely. So it's difficult. It's really difficult to advise someone. The best advice really is find somebody local to you who's going to help you out. Perhaps go around some tool fairs, second-hand tool fairs, look at some of the tools that are there and pick out a few of the best ones, and then use a bit of the money that you saved buying those second-hand to invest in slightly better tools when you're buying new. There is a list on my website of all the stores that I use regularly, and you can use that as a reference. Anyway, I hope that's been helpful. I'm sorry it's dragged on as long as it has. There's probably nobody watching anymore, but if there is, please stick a like down and share it with other woodworkers. Take care. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Cheerio!